Good morning and welcome to today's live online information session for industry on how to start getting prepared to notify your hazardous mixtures according to Annex 8 of the CLP regulation. Joining me here in the studio today are my Poison Centre team colleagues Daniel Ape, Daniel Sampolsky and myself, Heidi Rasakari. We also have the online panelists in the back room ready to take your questions and answer in written. You can ask a question at any time using the Q&A panel as you see on the screen, and we will try to answer as many questions today of general interest. If you have any specific questions or any questions after the event, please use the ECHA contact form. Today's session will be recorded and available from the ECHA's Poison Centre's website in the Support tab. You can also browse these pages in your preferred choice of language. Today's objectives are to offer advice to industry on how to start preparing as of today. We would also like to highlight the harmonised information requirements that go beyond the safety datasheet. We would also like to inform about the expected timelines regarding the guidance and the IT tools for preparation and submission of information. And finally, we would also like to give you the opportunity to ask us questions on regulatory matters related to Annex 8 of the CLP regulation. So, to start this presentation, I would like to first say a few words about Annex 8. Annex 8 is concerned with the harmonisation of information requirements for certain hazardous mixtures in all EU member states. This information must be prepared in a harmonised submission format and is to be used by poison centres for the purposes of making an emergency health response. So what are the mixtures that are in scope? Well, it is those that are classified for human health or physical effects. It does not include mixtures that are classified only for environmental effects, gases under pressure, or explosives. It also excludes those mixtures that are used in scientific research and development and those not covered by the CLP regulation in general. So who has to submit the information? Well, Annex 8 clearly states that the duty holder are the importers and downstream users placing hazardous mixtures on the market. Downstream users have been well defined in REACH and CLP regulations as the formulator, toll formulator, repackager, or refiller. Distributors, on the other hand, are not considered duty holders, and it is currently still ongoing with the discussions between member states about the role of the distributor placing on the market. Annex 8 also foresees a number of different deadlines for which the harmonised requirements must adhere to according to the use type of the mixture. For instance, if your mixture has consumer uses, then a notification must comply with Annex 8 as of January 2020. Similarly, for mixtures with professional uses from January 2021 and mixtures for industrial use only from January 2024. Of course, there is a transition period for the existing products which ends in January 2025 unless a change is made to the existing notification between the relevant deadline and the end of the transition period. So, where does harmonisation begin with? Firstly, it begins with the submission format, which we published earlier this year, and we call it the Poison Centre notification format. The format is also Euclid compatible, and this means that the structured fields for information are given as pick lists rather than free text fields. The format also collects information from a number of other areas, such as the submitter details, such as the name and address, which must also be consistent with the label. The mixture information, including the classification and labeling, the toxicological information, the full chemical composition, pH, and physical state. Information collected about the product includes the trade name, packaging, use types and intended uses, and as well as the color or colors. A new element is the Unique Formula Identifier, or the UFI. The UFI is a 16-character code which makes a link between the product on the market and the submitted mixture information. So now let's look at some of the information that goes beyond the safety data sheet. This may be where existing information is adapted, or you may need to include new. Let's start with the toxicological information. The toxicological information can be retrieved from section 11 of the safety data sheet. This is one of the few free text fields in the format, and it will be required in all of the languages where you intend to place the product on the market. As this is a free text field and may be copy and pasted, you will need to check the quality of this information. For example, it should not contain any references to other sections of the SDS. You will also need to obtain the full chemical composition, which means, of course, the hazardous components, but also the non-hazardous components, which are not normally detailed in the safety data sheet. This may mean that you need to establish improved information exchange in the supply chain. You will also need to check the formulation of any mixtures in mixtures that you use. In the best case scenario, you can get this information and report on all the substances. In other cases where it is not possible to get this information, you may use the UFI, which was notified by your MIM supplier, provided you also list all the known components. You will also need to assign concentration to all of the components. For this, you can use exact concentrations or concentration ranges. If you use ranges, though, do check the maximum width allowed, and this is given in tables 1 and 2 of Annex 8. You may also prefer to visit our dedicated web page on this topic. Components that are not classified for physical and health effects, however, need only be declared at concentrations of 1% or more. But there are a number of exceptions. For example, perfumes, fragrances, and colouring agents may be generically identified if they are not classified for any health hazard, the function and total concentration is provided, and the total concentration is within the thresholds. Additionally, some submissions can contain limited compositional information, again only if the mixture has industrial use only and a 24/7 phone service is provided. You will also need to review the product information. For example, additional mapping may now be required given that only 33 different packaging types are available for selection, and 14 colours are now available in the format. You will also need to assess the use types down the supply chain. This affects the deadline for which you need to comply with Annex 8. But bear in mind that if your mixture has an industrial use and ends up in a consumer use product, then you will need to comply with the earlier deadline for consumer uses, which is January 2020. You will also need to select a product category according to the European Product Categorization System. This may be a new requirement for some, or it may require some additional mapping. To assign a product category, you need to do this based on a single main intended use. The product categorization system contains around 250 categories to select one from. A practical guide has been published to provide descriptions and examples where possible for each of the categories. Of course, the manual, the guide rather, also offers advice when more than one use has been identified. You will also need to generate and assign euphies. A single euphy can only ever be assigned to one and only one mixture composition. And to generate a euphy, you will need the company's VAT number plus a formulation number between 0 and 268 million. For those companies that already use formulation codes or names, then some additional mapping may be required. We have made available a euphy generator tool, or if you wish, you can always implement a euphy generating algorithm in your own systems. I encourage you to visit our euphy pages. We have a wealth of information as well as the tools and manuals to support you with this. And of course, the relabeling of your products. The euphy must always be included in the notification as well as on the label or, in some cases, the packaging. There are no strict rules on the placement of the euphy, so you will need to redesign the label in any case to incorporate this new element. If the product is not packaged or if it has an industrial use only, the euphy can be included in Section 1 of the SDS. And of course, the printing of euphies on the label should ideally be planned to coincide with the submission of information. And a word on our guidance. Currently, the draft version is available on our website. It is in the last consultation step with Member States and the EU Commission. There is one open issue, which is, as I mentioned earlier, the role of the distributor, and we are still waiting for the outcome of these discussions. The expected publication of the first final version is anticipated for early 2019. Translations will, of course, follow as soon as the open discussion, the open issue, becomes clarified. So moving to the dossier preparation and submission tools, I would like to give you a status update. So ECHA is continuously working to support industry and member states with their Annex 8 obligations. By this, through the guidance and support and the preparation tools for and the dossier preparation tools for also the submission as well. The tools that we have for preparation, I mentioned already before, is the euphy generator, the PCN format, which is Euclid compatible. We also have an ECHA Cloud services available to store a dossier, and a validation assistant, which can be used by notifiers to check the quality of their information before they submit. Of course, ECHA is also working very hard on a central submission system, which we call the PCN portal. Together, these tools, we have identified 3 different ways to prepare and submit information. The first is the online preparation in the PCN portal. For this, we have a guided dossier preparation tool for the manual entering of data. We are working towards a user-friendly interface with help, with step-by-step instructions and help. As I mentioned before, there will be an ECHA Cloud service available to store the dossier, which can be validated before submission to the portal. The second way is through offline preparation using Euclid. This is an additional option for companies preferring to enter data manually. A new PCN user interface is developed in Euclid 6, and a Euclid dossier can be submitted to the PCN portal or to national submission systems. As this is supported by Euclid, dossier validation can also be checked before submission. The third and most advanced way is through system to system. This is where companies can directly prepare dossiers in PCN format in their own systems, and the submission will occur through automatic transfer to the PCN portal. This is particularly supportive of companies with large portfolios. However, validations will only be possible after submission. So to give you an update on the timelines and expected features for the PCN portal development, we have version 1 expected for April in 2019 of next year. The main features for industry are the online dossier preparation tool and the submission and search functionality. The main features for member states will include a secure mechanism to download notifications. Version 2 of the portal is expected to be completed by November 2019. The features here for industry will include the system-to-system automated submission, plus improvements in the user interface, such as multilingualism and the online help. The features for member states will include the system-to-system automated retrieval in their own databases, if they have them, and a searchable database will be made available for all member states to search notifications. If you would like some more support or information on some of the points that I have presented here today, I encourage you to visit our webpage. We have a new Steps for Industry webpage, and you can get more information about the topics here in your own language. And with that, I would like to begin the online Q&A session. Okay, thank you. We have received quite many questions already. We will go through as many as we can, and they will also be answered by our online panelists as well. The first one that I have here is, if the UFI is provided for a MIM, why do I need to also add the known components?
I can answer this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, indeed. Currently, if you declare the mixture-in-mixture component using the UFI of your supplier, you still have to provide the known mixture components that you know from the safety datasheet. The reason for this is the following. Currently, it is not envisaged that the member states across Europe have access to all the mixtures submitted to the Poison Sensors portal. They only have access to those mixtures that have been notified in their country. And for that reason, it may happen that your supplier notified in country A, while you have formulated your final mixture in country B, and therefore this access to the UFI of the MIM is not available to your member state where you notified the final mixture. There might be some changes in the future, but for the time being, this is the current status. So you need to also specify the known components.
Okay. We have one question here. Are mixtures that are only classified EUH 208 also out of scope? The answer is yes, they are out of scope.
We cannot, maybe in general, all the mixture which have a supplemental labeling information but are not themselves classified are outside the scope.
Okay. The next one I have is, does the UFI have to be on the label or can it be elsewhere on the packaging? Okay. I said in some cases, in all cases, it needs to be on the label, except if it is an industrial use or if it is not packaged. It can be, in some cases, on the packaging. Daniela, you might be able to...
Yes, there have been discussion in this respect, and the Commission is now analyzing whether a change in the discussion is ongoing. The general idea, our understanding, is that the UFI could be allowed to be placed on the packaging. We are now, in any case, discussing and also to see whether that can be a possible future change in the legal text. This will be clarified also in the guidance. So with the final version of the guidance, we'll clarify this. But the general understanding is that it should be allowed to place the UFI on the packaging and not only mandatory on the label.
Another question on the UFI about printing. It says, can the UFI be printed or glued on the label? And Annex 8 clearly states that it can be printed or affixed to the label. So yeah, I guess like a sticker.
Exactly. So this means that it could be somehow affixed, so not only printed. Of course, there should be the requirement of being secure. We should be sure that the stickers or the glue remain there and is not easily, it cannot be easily lost.
Okay. Moving to a different topic, can a non-EU supplier notify to poison centres?
Okay,
I can take it. Yes. No, the regulation is quite clear. The obligation applies to EU legal entities, EU companies. So in that case, it's the importer who has the obligation to submit the information under Article 45. Nevertheless, of course, we expect, and it should be expected, collaboration between the parties, because the holder of the information is the non-EU company. But the non-EU company doesn't have obligation to notify.
But maybe it's worth adding that our guidance will provide kind of some solutions for the non-EU suppliers, how they can act in this relationship with the EU importer.
Yes.
And this may be a solution for some of the non-EU suppliers to follow. But these solutions will anyway go via an EU-based legal entity, but will offer some opportunity to keep the confidentiality of the compositional information, because this is what we understand is a main concern in these discussions.
Okay. This one says, a request to postpone the deadline has been submitted by ISE in Belgium because it is a lot of work for the different companies. Do you have more information?
All right, I can take this one. This request has been indeed submitted to the European Commission. First, during the discussion of the Caracal meeting, a meeting of the member state competent authorities for the CLP and the industry associations, they have put forward the request to evaluate the feasibility of the upcoming deadlines as they are specified in Annex 8. This has been supported also by a number of member states. The Commission said that there are no plans currently to postpone the deadline. They will, however, have a look into that, but for the time being, there are no official plans to change the deadline, and we at ECHA, we work towards the deadline as they have been presented by Heidi today, and we would encourage everyone to work towards these deadlines. That's the status we have currently on this matter.
We should clarify. Should the Msds for finished products be included in all languages?
Right, I can maybe take.
Yes, we can say that the SDS in general is not part of the information requirement. So there's no requirement to include the SDS. Even if the system may allow to attach it. The information in general, they should be submitted in the language of the member state where the submission has been made. But I repeat, there's no, it's not a requirement to attach SDS in the notification.
I mean, maybe we should clarify that because the question was about the safety data sheet for the final mixture. And this is then where the answer that Daniele said is correct, because for the final mixture, the mixture that is being notified, there is no requirement for the safety data sheet. However, there might be some situations where safety data sheet is required to declare a component of the mixture, which is the mixture in mixture, and then yes, it should be also in the language of the final mixture.
Here's another one on the labeling information. How could the label information be consistent with the submitted product information by the downstream user if a relabeler, distributor, is not obliged to submit information according to CLP Annex 8?
Okay.
You?
Yeah, which we should say, as ID explained in the presentation, the issue is still under debate. So the discussion are ongoing on the role of certain actor along the supply chain, in particular rebrander and relabeler. We are aware of the possible inconsistencies and problem that the current interpretation, or the interpretation that you can see on the draft version of the guidance, which is online currently, poses. We are working on it, and the idea is to find a solution in order to reach the main goal, which is basically to provide the necessary information to the poison center. But we're aware of the fact that there is this problem with the interpretation of the duty holders.
Additionally, this consistency between the label information and the information in the notification has been also proposed by the Commission for the amendment of Annex 8. This has been put forward in the last meeting in October, and it seems that member states were okay with this proposal, so we could expect that if the amendment is put in place, which we don't have a guarantee for, then this consistency requirement would be removed.
Okay. If the UFI is provided for a MIM, a mixture in mixture, why do I need to also add the known components?
I think we already answered this question.
In
the beginning. Yes,
okay,
so maybe.
We'll skip that one. And we're having a lot of questions on mixtures in mixtures. Okay. Which countries will accept notifications through the ECHA portal? Is there any country that has indicated they will require a notification in a country-specific portal?
I can answer this question. Before summer this year, we as ECHA, we have conducted a survey with member states, and we have asked them to declare whether they would accept the central notification portal at ECHA. And from the declaration that we have collected, none of the member states declined the use of the central notification portal. So it seems that for the time being, all member states accept the central notification portal. Nevertheless, there is a number of member states that says also that they will offer the possibility of submitting locally via the local submission system. So we work towards addressing all the member states with this notification portal. But you have to bear in mind that this is a non-binding declaration. So member state can at any point in time opt out from the central notification portal for a reason that they would find important for them. But for the time being, we understand that there is an acceptance from all the member states. You have
this one. Okay. Another one here. Do member states have the right to ask for more information than stated in Annex 8, or still ask for registration of only environmental hazardous mixtures?
to answer?
I can start with this. The information requirements are stated in Annex 8. So in principle, no additional information can be asked. But this is the information about the environmental hazard is outside the scope of the of Annex 8. So this is quite clear. It's also explained in the draft guidance. Nevertheless, of course, appointed body and member state, they have the right to ask, for example, for clarification or for inconsistency, for whatever reason they think there are inconsistency or anything to be clarified. But in principle, we confirm that the information that can be requested are explained and listed in Annex 8.
Maybe to add to this, as mentioned briefly by Heidi in the presentation, all the dossiers will undergo validation. So we have called in ECHA a working group that consists of member state and industry associations, and we are working together on defining the automated checks of the dossiers. So the dossiers will be checked not only for the presence of information, but also for the consistency and quality of information.
Meaningfulness.
So certain elements will be checked automatically, but not everything can be checked automatically. And member states have rights to do also some manual verification. For that reason, also there will be some rules where we will not block the submission because of the non-compliance with the validation, but we will only issue a warning, and the member state may be informed that there are potential deficiencies of the dossier. So then the member state can contact you and ask, for example, about details of the submitted information. But as Daniela said, it should be in the context of Annex 8 information requirements.
Okay. In what language does the information have to be submitted? You can add. As I mentioned in the presentation, the information must be provided in all of the official languages where you intend to place on the market. Maybe a word about the English?
Yes. So the Annex 8 allows the member states also to specify other languages of submission. And we have also conducted a survey with member states asking them, will they accept English? So we didn't ask for any other languages, but only for English. And we have prepared a draft list of all the member states and languages that have been declared by those member states. This list has been presented in October by the Commission to all the member states at the Caracal meeting. And this list is subject to the kind of approval, kind of endorsement. So I guess early next year we will have this list approved, and we will see the final result. And as soon as we know the languages per country, then we will publish this information. To give you an estimate from the survey that we have conducted, it turned out that from all the member states, around 10 member states would accept notifications in English language as an alternative to the official country's language.
And some of the member states, they may have more than one official language, so then you can decide.
Okay. Can an only representative notify on behalf of an importer?
The CLP doesn't have this concept of only representative. So basically, there's not such a figure. So the obligation to submit the information are on the importer or downstream users. So no, basically, there's no. Yes.
Okay. Another one. How is it defined, the professional and industrial use? So what is the difference between industrial and professional use?
Yes, so for the industrial use, we have the concept of the end use. In general, we operate with the concept of end use. Am I correct with that?
Yes.
And this is what defines the use of the mixture. And this is important for two reasons. This is important for the determination of the deadline. So based on this, you can see whether your deadline is 2020, 2021, or 2024. And this is also important in case you would like to benefit from the limited submission option, that this limited submission option is available only if the mixture has industrial use only. So it cannot have also other uses.
Yeah, we can maybe add that the distinction between professional and industrial use, we can understand it may pose some question and doubt. As Daniel said, we base this definition on the concept of end use, which is the same concept that we use also in REACH and REACH guidance, and is normally linked to a kind of setting where the use takes place. So an industrial setting is a well-defined setting where normally there are certain security measures in place and operators are trained. So it's a question of setting which defines then whether it's professional or industrial.
Another one on UFI. Should the UFI be given in the SDS in all cases or only for industrial use? The UFI in the SDS should only be given when it is an industrial use or when the mixture is not packaged in any way. And the section is now 1.1. So, yeah.
This should be, I can add that this actually is under discussion. I mean, the concept is there, everybody agrees. They are now discussing how to make it clear in the legal text.
Okay.
There is also the possibility that Annex 2 of REACH may be in the future updated, and this is something that should be clarified also there.
Here is one. Is it mandatory to put the UFI on the label if we have already notified the product?
First of all, as Heidi mentioned, the deadlines are applicable for the products that are newly placed on the market. So whatever you have on the market now, it's subject to the national requirement, and you have already made a notification. In that case, you can benefit from the transition period, which will last until the 1st of January 2025. So, in case your product continues to be on the market beyond 2025, you will need to make a new submission according to Annex 8 requirement. And Annex 8 requirement is also the UFI. If you don't change anything in your mixture before 2025, until the 1st January 2025, you don't need to have a UFI on the label. But if you continue beyond 2025, you have to have UFI on the label. Additionally, for the product that you have currently on the market, in case once the Annex 8 is already applicable, in case you want to make an update to an existing mixture, you have to do it in the new system. So you cannot anymore update nationally. You have to do a new notification according to Annex 8. And in that case, Annex 8 requires the UFI, and you have to place UFI on the label as of that moment. This one?
Okay.
I could answer.
Is there any migrations between local registration center to the poison center?
Okay, this question can be understood in two ways, so I will answer in both ways. So the first understanding that it could bring is the question whether your currently notified products will be transferred to the poison center's central system, the new one. The answer is no. There has been 27, 28 member states with different information requirements. Now the Annex 8 harmonizes it, so we have a completely new system that is not compatible with the notification that have been submitted so far nationally. So, in case you continue your product beyond 2025, as I said earlier, you will need to make a new notification according to Annex 8. And the second understanding of this question could be whether the local systems, the member state, will have this information available to them. And the answer is that some of the member states, they will rely entirely on the ECHA database, the central database at ECHA, and they will access this information directly from them. And some member states, they wish to have a local copy of all the information that has been submitted for their country, and they will receive this information, so kind of migrate this information from the ECHA portal to their local systems.
In case non-hazardous detergents must be notified according to the local regime, could the ECHA portal be used for this purpose? Yes, I can answer. Indeed, the ECHA portal can be used for this, although there is no legal obligation to under Annex 8 to make a notification for these products. You can also use the portal and make it a voluntary submission.
Yes, we know this issue that in some member states there may be also a requirement to notify other mixtures. However, this requirement doesn't come from Annex 8. So it's a specific national legislation on this, in this context. And if this national legislation would happen to have exactly the same information requirement like Annex 8, then there is a usability of this portal. But in case the specific requirements of a member state requesting this information would go beyond Annex 8, then this portal, this poison census notification may not be suitable because it doesn't address extra information requirement, only the Annex 8 ones.
Here is one which seems quite popular. Is there any information about fees for the notifications?
Should I take this one?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, so the situation is the following. We know that currently in some of the member states, the fees are levied for the submissions. What will not change is that the member states have right to charge fees for the submissions, even if a central ECHA notification portal will be used. So this still remains at the discretion of member states. Now, some of the member states may wish to drop the fees because of this new system in place. Some member states will keep them, or some member states will even introduce these fees. We don't know yet the full situation. We as ECHA, we will not collect fees on behalf of member states. So this will be in the domain of member states. We now focus on we give priority to other matters, but it seems that the next thing which is on the line could be that we could facilitate the process of collecting information on the member state that will charge fees and what is the process for the particular member state. And we are willing to facilitate the discussions once we sort out other problems like languages, like amendment of Annex 8. And as soon as we have this information, we are, of course, happy to share it on our website. But for the time being, this process has not even started of collection of this information. So we cannot provide anything precise on this. Mm-hmm.
One question we have here, when submitting via the ECHA portal, the language issue would be reduced to free text input, right? Texts that are related to options will be generated by the system in the respective language, correct? Indeed, this is what we are aiming for, multilingualism. And this is why, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, that all the structured fields, this is what we are aiming for with the format, to contain these structured fields which are easily translatable. The free text fields, of course, will need to be provided for every language requirement.
Go ahead with that.
Okay, yes. Are there any special requirements for plant protection products? No, there are no special requirements for plant protection products. The European product categorization system lists the plant protection products in as part of the intended uses. So these are treated as per any other hazardous mixture under Annex 8. If I understood correctly in slide 14, you said that you should need both the UFI and all ingredients if you are using mixtures in mixtures. Is this correct?
Only the one that they know.
Yes, basically, you need the UFI, and then there are different. The Annex 8 provides different option in case of mixture in the mixture. Then it depends on the knowledge or level of knowledge that you have on this mixture in the mixture. Ideally, you should indicate all the component of this mixture in the mixture in the final as component of the final mixture. If you don't have the full composition, you don't have information on the full composition of the mixture in the mixture, then in that case you can indicate the UFI plus the known components, which normally can be retrieved in the SDS. The last option, if you don't have the UFI, then you can provide, this is the case when you can provide the SDS of the mixture on the mixture.
Yeah, maybe to complement what Daniele said, it's that this option, by providing the safety data sheet, it's really meant to cover all this transition period where your supplier may not have a UFI already in place and so on. But we would expect that beyond 2025, where everyone is already covered by this new requirement and the transition period is over, that this option should no longer be used because all these mixtures should have been notified.
Okay. If the classification of a MIM changes without impacting our product classification, is it correct that we do not need to update the notification?
Well, in principle, the main update reasons are, as explained in Annex 8, they concern the final mixture. So in case your mixture in mixture component doesn't change, changes the classification, but it doesn't have an impact, you could eventually update it at your earliest convenience, but you don't have to do it immediately, like in cases where you have an impact on your final mixture, where you have to change immediately when it becomes... so you could do it at your earliest convenience, for example.
Even if I think it's always the question of depend on the case, because in case you have new and relevant toxicological information, in any case you have to update the notification. So in case the change in classification of the MIM doesn't impact the final classification and you consider that there are no new relevant toxicological information, then an update exactly. Then it's like Daniel was saying.
Okay. If I buy the same mixture in mixture from two different suppliers, can I provide two UFIs of the same MIM in the notification?
Well, the current answer to this question is no. This would actually mean two separate submissions. The reason for this is that if you have used UFI, there is an assumption you don't know the mixture composition. You may believe that these two raw materials from your suppliers are the same, but if you don't specify without using UFI the full composition, then it means you operate with UFI, you don't know exactly. But this problem is known to us and the European Commission, that is workability issues, because many of you have a situation where you alternate different suppliers for the same raw material, and obviously the way like you have been asking here would be convenient for you if you can just make one notification regardless of the suppliers of the raw material. This is a subject of a workability study that has been commissioned by the European Commission, and this workability study is in development, is in preparation. To our knowledge, the interim results of the workability study will be made available in February next year, when the Commission expects to organize a workshop. The date is not confirmed, but I guess if not mid-February, then end February, then possibly something around that time. And we expect that during this workshop already a tentative solution will be proposed to address this problem. So for the time being, we don't have any answer to that, except to say that currently you have to submit different notifications if you have different suppliers of the same raw material.
We've got a couple of questions. Maybe it wasn't clear from the presentation about when the format will be available and where to get it from. The format was published earlier this year on our Ecopoison Center website. So you can visit the website and retrieve it from there. If one notifies one product for several member states, does one notify in each language of the member state?
Would you like to?
You can. I'll get the
Should
next.
I go ahead? Okay. Yes, so we envisage a possibility to have one file, one notification to several member states. As discussed earlier, there are some free text fields which are not translatable automatically, and those free text fields will need to be provided by the submitter in each of the relevant languages. This will in practice look the following way. When you start preparing the file, you will in the header of the dossier indicate all the relevant countries where you will send, and by this you will be also told which languages and where you have to specify the information in the specific language of that member state. For everything else that is structured information, we would aim to support multilingualism in the sense that they could be translated automatically.
Maybe to clarify maybe this question also, that if you place the product on different market, you have to provide the notification in each official language of the member state.
Or the languages that they have specified according
exactly.
to what will be published on our website.
I have one here. There are a lot of product categories available. Are the REACH product categories going to be harmonized with them? Yes, we have around about approaching 250 product categories in the EU PCS. These categories are based on the main intended use, which do not necessarily coincide with all of the REACH product categories. We do have a section on mixtures more for industrial use, and we have taken quite many of the REACH product categories and included them into our EU PCS. How fast the notification of hazardous mixtures through PCN portal will replace the notification to individual member states?
Yeah, and I'm happy to answer that one. That's a very good question and good to explain this. So first of all, until the applicable deadlines, which Heidi mentioned in the presentation, the national obligation applies unless a member state will declare that they are ready to accept earlier the notification through the central portal in the harmonized format. This is also important because, as Heidi mentioned in the presentation, we expect to provide the version 1 of the notification portal in April next year. This may lead to a confusion that already as of that date we can start notifying, and member state will already accept from that date when we make the portal open. That may not necessarily be the case. First of all, we need to make sure that not only you are able to submit the information, but also that a member state is ready to receive it, and certain security measures have to be discussed, and certain security standards followed to give access to this data to a member state. We know of some member states that are very fast, and they aim to be as ready as we with the release of the version 1. So they want to accept it from the day 1. But for some others, it may take a bit more time. The other thing is also that a member state may be in a need to update their national legislation to accommodate the fact that as of this day, we change from the national system to entirely European system. So this is not so obvious at that very moment, and we will need to monitor this situation closer to the release of the portal. For the time being, it's not clear what is the moment when you will be able to submit and member state will be ready to accept it.
We have only a few more minutes available for this online Q&A session. One question here that I would like to answer is, will the presentation be available for download after the webinar? If yes, where? Yes, the presentation and today's recording will be available at from the Eco Poison Center website webpage. Go to the support tab and you will find the information linked there. Okay. Maybe one more. Okay. If the product, I think this may be our final question, if the product is no longer manufactured or sold, do we need to update the return? If yes, how?
With the seizing of,
Okay.
Probably. Want to answer this?
basically, you don't, once the placing on the market ceases, so your business, you don't place this product on the market anymore, you are not required to update this notification anymore, but there will be, I understand, there will be the possibility to indicate that.
Well, we don't envisage in the first versions of the portal a possibility for you to indicate that you stopped seizing, that you ceased placing on the market. However, there is nothing like withdrawal of the notification, because once you have placed the product on the market, it stays there forever, because people may have bought your product and keep it in household for 10, 20 years. So this information will always be necessary for poison centers. So the only thing with your indication, it's letting know the authorities that this product is discontinued, but nothing beyond that.
Okay, I think that's all we have time for. We would like to close this session, and we will join our colleagues behind the scenes and start answering in written some of the many questions that we've received here today. I would like to thank you for your attention and hope to see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.